After a call with my wife, June, she forgot to hang up. I overheard our daughter saying, "Mom, between my two dads, I like the other dad, Jack, more. Can he take me to Disneyland again next time?" "Of course he can," June replied. "He's your real dad, after all." Jack was June's first love. Right now, the paternity test results are sitting in front of me. I've smoked several cigarettes, unable to muster the courage to open them. It wasn't until my secretary, Alice, knocked on the door and wrinkled her nose at the thick smoke in the office that I realized I had lost my composure today. "Boss, the Royal Group project is secured," she said, holding a thick stack of documents. I snapped out of my daze. "Just leave them there. I'll sign them in a bit." Alice nodded and left. I wiped my face and gently opened the paternity test. The results confirmed that Maria, the daughter I've loved for almost 4 years, isn't biologically mine. Surprisingly, I felt a strange calmness. Looking back, the signs were always there. A few years ago, June, who was usually cold towards me, suddenly made a candlelit dinner. We drank red wine, and in a moment of passion, I forgot to use protection. June, who usually hated skipping protection, didn't scold me. Instead, she calmly told me a few weeks later that she was pregnant. She even started being kinder to me, which left me feeling flattered. On the day Maria was born, June had a difficult labor. I swore to never let her go through that pain again and got a vasectomy. Now, thinking back, I feel foolish. June knew exactly whose child Maria was. She only wanted to have Jack's child. If June hadn't forgotten to hang up the phone, letting me overhear our daughter talking about her two dads, I might still be in the dark. My story with June is a typical business marriage. Her family's company hit a rough patch and turned to my parents for help. The only difference is, I had secretly loved June for a long time. I always knew she didn't love me. She had a first love she broke up with, and marrying me was just a way to solve her family's urgent problems. After we got married, she remained cold towards me. I thought I could win her heart with my sincerity. I believed that with enough time, she would feel my love. After Maria was born, we grew closer. I thought I had finally moved her, but reality hit me hard. We've been married for 5 years, and even our daughter knows she has another dad. June just watched coldly as I was played for a fool. My phone buzzed. It was rare for June to message me. "Alice told me you're back from your trip. Why haven't you come home? Maria's been asking for you." A bitter smile crossed my lips. Any man would struggle to stay calm in this situation. I didn't want to argue with June in front of Maria, so I quietly left home and stayed in an apartment near the office. It's been a week, and she's only now noticing I'm back. That night, despite my anger, I messaged her, saying I'd be busy and staying at the apartment near work for convenience. June either didn't see it or just swiped it away without reading. Thinking about this made me feel incredibly tired. Was I wrong to seek love in this business marriage? For the first time, I didn't reply to June's message. She never had much patience with me. Seeing no response, she quickly called. As soon as I answered, she demanded, "Paul, didn't you see my message?" "Sorry, I'm working late. Do you remember you have a family? Maria's been asking for you every day. Do you think this is fair to her?" I stayed silent. I wanted to ask June if she remembered she had a family, if she remembered Maria was another man's child. But looking at the family photo on my desk, I held back. "Maria's sick and wants ice cream from Dairy Queen. Buy it and bring it to the hospital," she said coldly before hanging up and sending me the location. Thinking of Maria's sweet face calling me Daddy, I softened. After all, I had raised her myself. I drove to Dairy Queen, bought the ice cream, and headed to the hospital. Just as I reached the door of the hospital room, I heard Maria's clear voice, "Daddy Jack." Maria was very brave today. I took my medicine and got my shots. I paused at the door and peeked inside. There was a young man in a white coat, smiling gently. It was June's first love, Jack. He affectionately ruffled Maria's hair. "My sweet girl," he said. June stood nearby, watching their interaction with a tenderness I had never seen in our 5 years of marriage. The three of them looked so harmonious, like a real family, and by blood, they were. My chest felt like it was stuffed with thick cotton. I felt like the biggest fool, rushing to the hospital with ice cream. My feet felt glued to the floor. I couldn't move forward or back. Jack noticed me first. "Paul," he called out. Hearing my name, June's previously soft expression turned cold. She looked at me with indifference. "Why are you so late?" she asked, her eyes landing on the ice cream bag in my hand. She pursed her lips. "Jack already brought Maria dinner. No ice cream for her now?" Jack tried to smooth things over. Maria didn't eat much. She can have the ice cream later. Maria clapped her hands at the mention of dessert. I want dessert. June shook her head disapprovingly. No, you have already brushed your teeth. You can't eat anything else, or you'll get cavities. Jack countered. She's still growing. Let her eat if she wants. I think she's too skinny. June looked at Jack, exasperated but smiling. You spoil her too much. Maria, sensing her mother's concession, cheered. I had stepped into the room, but I still felt like an outsider. Jack reached out to take the ice cream from me. I'll take that, he said, as if he were the man of the house, June's husband. His eyes were challenging. He knew that if I had tried to persuade June, she wouldn't have agreed. She never let me contradict her when it came to raising Maria. A surge of anger welled up inside me. Since I entered the room, June hadn't shown me any warmth, and Maria hadn't even called me Dad. I began to reflect on myself. Had I been too submissive, allowing June to treat me this way? Not only did she make me raise Jack's child, but she also didn't hide it from me. Did she think I was a pushover? I stared at Jack's outstretched hand and let out a cold laugh. Then, I tossed the ice cream into the trash. No need. If she's had dinner, she doesn't need dessert. Jack and June were stunned. Maria was the first to react, bursting into tears. Daddy's mean. I hate Daddy. June snapped at me. Paul, what's wrong with you? Jack quickly picked up Maria. It's okay, Maria. I will get you more ice cream. Don't cry. Maria sobbed in his arms, waving her little hands. I don't want Paul Daddy. I only want Daddy Jack. June glared at me. Maria's already sick, and you're making it worse. Do you have any idea how to be a father? I looked at June, for the first time finding her cold, beautiful face repulsive. Fine, I'm not much of a father. But there's one right here, I said, nodding towards Jack. June frowned, ready to argue, but stopped when she saw my expression. You three are the real family. Don't force the role of father on me, I said, leaving the room. June's face changed dramatically. I turned to leave, but June followed me out. She caught up with me at the elevator, grabbing my arm, out of breath. Paul, what do you mean? What's gotten into you? I looked at her, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. June, I've been a fool for too long. You, Jack, and Maria are the real family. I'm done playing this role. June's eyes widened in shock. Paul, you can't just walk away. Maria needs you. Does she? Or does she need Jack more? I replied, pulling my arm free and stepping into the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw June standing there, speechless. For the first time, I felt a sense of liberation, even if it came with a heavy heart. I stopped in my tracks and turned to look at her. What about you? Are you feeling guilty? She was momentarily speechless, then sneered. Guilty? I'm the one asking you what nonsense you were spouting. Even now, she wouldn't admit it. We should get a divorce, I said, suddenly feeling utterly disinterested. I should have asked for a divorce the moment I got the paternity test results, instead of clinging to Maria and hoping June might show me some compassion. I shouldn't have come here to humiliate myself. June's face changed. Why are you talking about divorce out of the blue? I spoke softly. June, you might not realize it, but I know you better than you think. If you had nothing to hide, you wouldn't have chased after me. Her face turned pale, and I could feel her fingers trembling as she held my arm. I shook my head, pried her hand off, and stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw her lips move as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. Part 7. Packing up back at my downtown apartment, I quickly packed my things. 5 years of marriage, and I had so few personal belongings that they fit into a single suitcase. When I returned to the apartment, I saw that June had called me multiple times. When I didn't answer, she sent several messages. Paul, did someone say something to you? Are you serious about the divorce? Do you realize our marriage isn't just about us, but also our family's businesses? I laughed bitterly. I had thought she chased after me out of some sense of guilt. It turned out she was just worried about the impact on our family's cooperation. But why should I care? When we got married, my family's business saved hers from bankruptcy. Because I loved her, I had always been accommodating in our business dealings. And what did I get in return? A wife who only treated me well when she felt like it, and a child that wasn't mine. Did they think I was a pushover? I didn't reply to June's messages. Instead, I contacted a lawyer to draft a divorce agreement. The lawyer was efficient and sent me the agreement the next day. I reviewed it, found no issues, and sent it to June. She called almost immediately. It was amusing. She had contacted me more in the past 2 days than in the past 5 years of our marriage. Paul, are you serious? I could hear the anger in her voice. She probably didn't expect me to actually go through with the divorce. As you can see, I'm not joking. I'm telling you, once we're divorced, there's no going back, she said confidently, as if I would regret it. Even though I had decided to end things, her tone made me sad. Her confidence came from knowing I loved her. But despite knowing my feelings, she still chose to trample on them. I blinked back tears. June, wouldn't it be better if I stepped aside for Jack? Stop talking nonsense. You're so annoying, she snapped and hung up. I thought she would quickly sign the divorce agreement, but there was no response from her. Over the weekend, my parents asked me to go home for dinner. I figured I should inform them about the divorce, so I went. As soon as I stepped into the house, I saw June's parents chatting happily with mine. June was unusually busy in the kitchen with the maid. Maria was playing with her toys, but lit up when she saw me. Daddy, she called out, stopping everyone's conversation. My parents and June's parents turned to look at me. Seeing the situation, I understood immediately. June must have told them about the divorce and brought her parents to persuade me. Sure enough, as soon as I sat down in the living room, my dad asked the maid to take Maria away and said, "June told us you want a divorce. Why bring this up when you have a child?" My dad's tone was stern, probably thinking I had cheated. June's parents couldn't bring it up directly, given their reliance on our family over the years. But since my dad started, June's father chimed in, "Paul, we trusted you with June. We haven't heard of any issues between you two. Why suddenly talk about divorce? Did you meet someone else? As a man, I understand how it is, but your marriage with June isn't just a simple relationship. It's about two families. Let's sit down and talk this through." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their expectations. This isn't about someone else. It's about the fact that June and I have never truly been a couple. Our marriage was a business arrangement, and it's time to end it. My dad looked shocked. "Paul, what are you saying? You have a daughter. Divorce isn't a trivial matter. For the sake of the child, you shouldn't bring it up so lightly," June's mother chimed in, her words laced with disapproval. My mother, the only one who hadn't spoken, looked at me with disapproving eyes. I didn't know what June had told them, but it seemed they all thought I was the one at fault. It was clear that this dinner wasn't going to happen. I had initially hoped for an amicable separation, but now I felt no need to spare June's feelings. My past submissiveness had given her the confidence to call her parents here, unafraid that I might expose her secrets. I smiled and said, "June, stop what you're doing and come out here. Let's all hear why I insist on a divorce." June quickly wiped her hands and came out of the kitchen. She was wearing a yellow dress I had bought her when we first got married. She hadn't liked the color and had never worn it until today. It was a shallow attempt to appease me, but it only made me feel more frustrated. She knew what could make me happy, yet she had never done it in the past 5 years. Now, faced with divorce, she was trying to use this dress as a peace offering. I laughed at myself and then pulled out the paternity test that I had looked at countless times. I placed it on the coffee table. This is why I want a divorce. June's face turned ashen the moment she saw the words paternity test on the cover. She looked at me in disbelief, her lips trembling. "When did you?" My mother was the first to pick up the test. She quickly flipped to the last page, saw the result, and clutched her chest, collapsing onto the sofa. The paternity test was like a bombshell. June's parents didn't even dare to look at it. "So, I don't think there's anything left to discuss. For years, I believe I've done my best," I said softly, looking at June, who was now pale and unsteady. "Sign the divorce papers soon. If you truly care about Maria, you should take her to her biological father." June couldn't speak. Her father, his face livid, said angrily, "How could you do such a thing?" I stood up. "The facts are clear. You should go home and discuss this among yourselves. I need to explain things to my parents." "Paul, can't we talk this over?" June's father asked, his face strained. "No," I replied firmly. June stood there, stunned, as her father grabbed her. "Let's go. What are you standing here for?" The dinner was over before it even began. After calming my parents, I returned to my apartment, only to find June standing at my door, her hair disheveled. Since deciding on the divorce, I had changed the door code. She couldn't get in and had to wait outside. Hearing my footsteps, she looked at me and said, "Paul, are you satisfied now? My father is disappointed in me for the first time in my life." June stood up slowly, the the yellow dress making her look even paler. I found it all very ironic. I don't understand how you have the nerve to come here, I said, the harshest words I'd ever spoken to her in our 5 years of marriage. June's eyes reddened. I opened the door and stepped inside, blocking her from following. Sorry, but I've already asked for a divorce. This place isn't suitable for you anymore. She bit her lip. Do you have to be so ruthless? I looked at her seriously. You had another man's child, told her about her biological father, and kept me in the dark, treating me like a fool. Who's really being ruthless here? June was speechless. I know you didn't marry me out of love, but why couldn't you at least be loyal? I don't understand why you're here now. Jack is back, and Maria knows he's her father. Our divorce will let you reunite with him. Isn't that what you want? June's eyes filled with tears, but she couldn't argue. I closed the door, leaving her outside. It was time to move on, for both of us. It's not like that, Paul. Please, let me explain, June pleaded. There's nothing to explain, I replied coldly. Just answer me one question. Is Maria Jack's child? June looked mortified but nodded slightly. Then sign the divorce papers quickly, or I'll take this to court. Don't blame me if it comes to that, I said, shutting the door in her face. June texted me, I won't leave unless you listen to my explanation. She sat down at my door again. I felt a wave of irritation. What was she trying to do? Win me back? It was laughable. They say belated affection is worth less than grass. Where was this effort before? I ignored her and went to my study to handle my work. Late at night, the doorbell rang. June was outside, crying, Paul, I know I was wrong. Please open the door. Let me explain. I pretended not to hear. Can you really just let go of our years together? I don't believe you can't give me another chance, she sobbed. I never imagined that the usually cold and composed June would break down like this at my door. I thought for a moment and then called Jack, asking him to come and take June away. Jack arrived quickly, half coaxing, half carrying the still crying June away. The next day, he asked to meet me. He was there to plead on June's behalf. We met at a cafe. I stirred my coffee and said, I thought my leaving would let you two get back together. Jack gave a bitter smile. At least until the day you showed up at the hospital, I thought so too. He started recounting his and June's past. He was a bright boy from a small town who had fought hard to get a scholarship to Harvard Medical School. She was a privileged girl from California who had everything handed to her and wanted to stay close to home. She didn't understand his uncertainties about the future, but didn't want to hold him back either. They promised to reunite after 4 years. But in the 3rd year, her family faced a crisis, and June had to marry you. She felt she had betrayed their love and was always guilt-ridden, which is why she felt guilty towards me. I chuckled softly. So that's your excuse for having a child with her and still staying in my life? Jack's face changed. No matter how noble or pure he tried to make their love sound, it couldn't cover up the sordid reality. When I heard June tell Maria that Jack was her real father, I pieced together the timeline. Maria was a little over 3 years old, meaning she was conceived around the time of our wedding. The night before our wedding, June had a bachelorette party with her friends. She had called me during the party, and Jack was in the background of that video call. My first official meeting with Jack was at the wedding. Jack, you were at the bachelorette party, weren't you? I asked, my voice steady. Jack looked uncomfortable. Yes, I was there. June invited me. That was the night Maria was conceived, wasn't it? I pressed. Jack didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. I continued, June called me during that party. You were in the background. I didn't think much of it then, but now it all makes sense. Jack took a sip of his coffee, trying to mask his discomfort. I suddenly asked, you didn't want to be here as a mediator, did you? So why the pretense? A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face. Because June told me last night that she realized she loves you. I was taken aback. She realized she loves me only after I asked for a divorce? Don't you believe it? Jack said, frustrated. Why do you think I was provoking you? Because I noticed she was mentioning you more and more. Her love is treating me coldly, cheating on me, and making me raise your child? That's laughable. June has a strong sense of pride. Maybe she couldn't accept that she had fallen for you, so she masked it with indifference, Jack explained. I checked my watch, realizing I had wasted too much time. Tell June I have no reason to stay with her. She doesn't deserve it. Jack stood up abruptly. Paul, that's too much. At that moment, a woman wearing a mask at the table behind Jack stood up. It was June. Her face was pale, and her eyes were filled with tears. Paul, do you really hate me that much? I know I made mistakes, but can't you forgive me for the sake of our past? June, why are you begging him? Jack said angrily. He doesn't deserve you. I nodded. Exactly. You can reunite with your first love and let Maria be with her real father. Why break that up? June's tears flowed freely. It's all my fault. If you don't want Maria, I'll compensate you. We can have another child. Jack looked at her in disbelief. June, how can you say that? Maria would be heartbroken if she heard you. I felt a wave of disgust. After making me raise another man's child for 4 years, your solution is to have another baby with me? That's absurd. June, face reality. I don't need you. Her face finally showed pain. I left the cafe, feeling a strange sense of relief. It was time to move on, to start a new chapter without the lies and deceit. I returned to my apartment, determined to finalize the divorce and reclaim my life. June's attempts to explain and win me back were futile. The trust was broken, and there was no going back. It was time for both of us to face the consequences of our actions and move forward separately. Realizing that June would never willingly sign the divorce papers, I had my lawyer file for divorce. The scandal was too much for June's parents, and they forced her to sign the agreement. A month later, I received the divorce certificate. June was there too, looking much thinner and devoid of her former pride. She hesitated and asked softly, Paul, can we have one last meal together? I shook my head. No, let's just pretend we don't know each other from now on. She bit her lip and started crying. I walked past her to my car, catching a glimpse of Jack holding Maria and comforting June. June's regret was baffling. When I was devoted to her, she only thought of Jack, feeling that our marriage betrayed her pure love. Now that I had cut ties and sought a divorce, she clung to me, ignoring Jack, who had always been there for her. Did June even understand love? She seemed to love only the idealized image in her mind. First Jack, then me. She never learned to appreciate the person in front of her. After the divorce, my mother started arranging blind dates for me. I didn't mind, but finding the right person wasn't easy. June, hearing about my dates, called me late at night, crying without saying a word. After a few times, I blocked her number. 6 months later, I met Lisa, a business partner. After a few months of dating, we decided to get married. June somehow found out about my upcoming wedding with Lisa and went crazy. She showed up at our new home in the middle of the night, drunk and causing a scene. I was fed up and called Jack to take her away. Thankfully, Lisa was understanding. She knew all about the mess of my marriage with June and didn't make a fuss. After the wedding, I took some time off to go on a honeymoon with Lisa abroad. When we returned, Jack came to see me, looking pale. June decided to marry me, he said. I nodded. Congratulations. You finally got what you wanted. He gave a bitter smile. It's not really her choice. She only agreed because she heard you went on a honeymoon with your new wife.
East Side.
There's no need for this. If I, the one who was cheated on, can move on, why can't June? I patted Jack on the shoulder. His face was full of uncertainty about the future. All I could do was wish him luck. The next time I saw June was when Lisa and I went for a prenatal checkup. We ran into Jack and June at the hospital. June was further along than Lisa, who was only 3 months pregnant, while June's belly was already showing. Jack was carefully supporting her, but June's face lacked the warmth she once had for him. If you're busy, just go. Why put on a show here? Isn't this your child? When I was pregnant with Maria, Paul treated me so well. Hearing my name in such a context felt like bad luck. I quickly led Lisa in the opposite direction. During Christmas, my mom mentioned, I heard June's with Jack now, but they don't seem to be doing well. I saw her at the mall, heavily pregnant, dragging Maria along. Maria was crying, and June just walked ahead, leaving her behind. I almost went over to help. Don't get confused, Mom. Lisa's baby is your real grandchild, she scolded, giving me a stern look. Do you think I'm that clueless? Coincidentally, Jack texted me that night, asking to grab a drink. I ignored the message. While spending the night with Lisa, my phone kept buzzing. Jack had sent several drunken voice messages. Is it really that hard to stay in love? I thought finding Maria and June would start a new chapter for us. But why is it like this? June doesn't understand my work. I'm a pediatrician, and I'm busy. She keeps saying I'm not like you. You were always there for her before. Lisa overheard the messages and was surprised. You still keep in touch with him? Jack was the other man in your last marriage, and you're friends now? I calmly put my phone away and pulled her into my arms. She suddenly realized, "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" I smiled. "Of course. I kept Jack's contact to occasionally chat and show off my happiness with you. Compared to his marriage with June, ours is much better. Jack doesn't have the same family support I do. He has to work hard for everything." Jack had been a promising talent at the hospital, but he compromised too much for June, giving up many opportunities. The hospital was disappointed in him. He often vented to me, treating me like a confidant. Sometimes, I found it amusing. Jack told me that after June got pregnant, he couldn't handle everything alone. So he brought his parents to help with Maria and June. Living together caused many conflicts. When June was my wife, my mom never criticized her despite her cold attitude. Now, their life was full of petty squabbles, making it impossible to be happy. Seeing Jack's current situation made me happy. Call me petty, but June and Jack deserved this. From the moment June decided to let Maria be my child, she should have known this would happen. And Jack, he wasn't innocent either. How could someone be so shameless as to sleep with his ex the night before her wedding? He knew Maria was his child and still watched me raise her. So why shouldn't I enjoy watching their downfall? Lisa laughed. "You really put on a good show, fooling everyone." After the new year, Lisa gave birth to twins. Around the same time, I heard from Jack that June didn't keep the baby. On New Year's Eve, she had a huge fight with Jack's mom and went to the hospital to have an abortion. She even sent the baby's remains to Jack's parents. Jack's mom fainted on the spot and demanded a divorce when she woke up. Now, Jack and June were in a bitter legal battle. June's family wasn't taking it lying down. They hired people to cause trouble at Jack's hospital. Their lives were in shambles. I sent Jack a new family photo and then deleted his contact. Seeing their miserable lives finally brought me peace. The end. Thanks for listening. Tell us in the comments how you feel about this story, and have a nice day.